I'm Lester Holt.
Howdy, Holdheads. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host,
Kateline.
to talk about a brand new Dateline, and I think we both got thoughts. Kate, oh wait, I'm such a idiot. IMDb first, and then I ask the stuff, don't I?
Yeah, you should probably say what the episode is called, too.
I do that after, I think, don't I? I think I do that after. IMDb description. And you're right, I think you're right. Right. And we are talking... And we're talking about a brand new Dateline tonight called The Haunted House Confession. IMDb description. After 25-year-old Chantay Blankenship's remains are found at an abandoned building that locals call the Haunted House, investigators sort through dead-end leads till a very stunning confession during a church service changes everything. Hosted by Blayne Alexander. Kate, give me your overalls. What you think of this, baby? How to say it?
Is that a review? Blayne was great.
I thought she was okay. She was asking some obvious cues. But look, they've got to get the answers out of these people somehow.
Yes. And they're not the most forthcoming. So she did what she had to do. I can see why they made her handle this one.
Why?
It felt like maybe the bigger hosts didn't want to spend time here. It's, again, that Bill Hader impression when he's talking about how anytime there's one in Hawaii or somewhere exotic, J-Mank's like, that one's mine.
He's always in Aruba. It's like, the guy killed someone in Cabo San Lucas, that's mine. Like, he always gets the best.
Let's dive into this. Our story begins in May of 2016 in Texas. I forget the town name. Do you remember?
Brownwood?
Okay, we'll go with that.
Community on Lake Brownwood in central Texas.
25-year-old Chantay Blankenship goes for a walk, like she usually does, but she does not come home. It's late, she lives with her grandpa and her boyfriend, and people are starting to get worried. Chantay's mom finds out about this, starts calling around, have you seen Chantay? What's the scoop? And now this is such a small, close-knit community. Everybody gathers at the church. And this becomes like the hub of the investigation. The town just gathers to talk about, we got to find Chantay. We don't know what happened to her. Let's all break off and go look. And the search begins.
Chantay's grandfather said he'd been calling her nonstop.
It wasn't normal for her not to communicate, especially with him.
About 48 hours later, cops get a call on 911, and apparently there's been a body found. Kateline, tell us about this 911.
Their body cameras were rolling as they met Charlie Radel and his girlfriend, Jackie Neal.
A husband and wife. They were out looking for Chantay. And,
Chantay.
Well,
I know.
Her mother says Chantay, but she preferred to go by Chantay.
And I don't think anybody in the episode could agree, to be honest. I don't think we ever landed on which one it was.
But honestly, I'm more familiar with Chantay than Chantay.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what the victim wanted to be called, so I'm going to do my best. I feel like my Midwestern music was going to want to go Chantay and stuff, but I'm not. Chantay. Continue.
Yeah, let's class it up. Chantay.
Yeah, Chantay.
Chantay, you stay.
Chantay, you stay.
So Chantay was known for going on these walks, so this was not unusual.
Right.
Everyone around town would see her out walking, and they'd be like, there she goes on her walk, on her daily constitutional. And I think that's cool for someone that age to care about getting the blood pumping, going out, strolling, seeing what's what. But unfortunately, it did not end well. They found her body on an abandoned property that was way on the outskirts of town, but everyone knew about it.
The cops didn't, though. The main cop, Bird, had
weird.
never been to this place before. That's what shocked me.
I guess that's why the cop was suspicious of this married couple, because they were like, why would they be out in this random place? And it's like, well, the whole town knows about this random place, my guy.
Yeah. And let's say the married couple, they were in their mid-40s. And I say that just because that puts the guy right in the sweet spot for a potential killer, I feel. I mean, I'm not trying to give these cops credit, but I'm just letting you put a face to a name. It was Charlie and Jackie, and Charlie's on the ground crying and stuff. And he talks about how they found the body here, and yeah, right away, the cops are super suspicious. I gotta say, okay, so Charlie's crying and stuff, and they want him to sit in the car so they can relax and whatnot. They are suspicious right off the bat, and I just... Boy, the more Datelines we watch, Kate, the more I'm okay if people don't report a body when they find it. I get the mentality.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And you'll see why with these two. Like, They're the number one suspect.
They were just trying to do what was right. They were helping the community.
Yeah.
And they found her in a very likely location where someone else from the search party would have eventually looked as well.
Yeah.
It just happened to be them. And they walked over to what looked like a great place to hide a body. But the cop was like, how did they know to go right over there and look in that hole? Because there was kind of this in the middle of the field. And when you look at it, it seems obvious. You go up to the fence and what's that in the middle of the field? You go and you look and there it is. And that's where she was found.
There are two giant ass like crows on the house next door. I'm sorry. This was a new one for me. It rained this morning.
About a 9 on the tension scale, Rube.
Charlie also says something. Oh, I know. Kate, when we were both watching this in our own time, texted about it. The vibe was, oh no, there's going to be something in this episode that we just talked about. That was your first warning to me because you watched it first.
Yep.
Now, there might be 2 or 3 things in here that we were on a high horse about not 1 week ago. So I don't even know which one you're talking about. Was it this one with the I got a daughter my age? Because this is the first time we hear it in this app.
I got a daughter that age.
No, what I was talking about was in the opening. So it flagged immediately for me, and that's when I texted you.
But this is not the last time we're going to hear this.
We all have kids, and it affects you.
And I just got to say, I'm a straight up hypocrite, okay? Because this guy was crying and talking about it, and I was like, dude, I don't have a daughter, and I'm worried about this. But remember last week, I was like, maybe AC says it different or something. I'm just a hypocrite. I'm just going to own it. I like it when AC does it and gets teary. When other people do it, I say I don't have time.
Look, Kurt, like I said last week, love makes us do crazy things.
Fair. That is so true.
Good, honey.
Okay. This is where we pause and get the backstory on Chantay. And she loved the color pink. She was crazy short. And she was
She was a tiny, tiny little girl. She was like
under 5 foot.
4'11", maybe 4'10". Yeah, very small.
Yeah, and her boyfriend that we meet is way taller. I mean, I think any boyfriend would be way taller, but he seemed like a tall, lanky guy. So I was kind of like, I like the contrast here with you two.
That often happens. I feel like growing up, whoever the shortest girl was, her boyfriend was always the tallest guy.
Yep. Chantay is a big personality. Everybody loved her. She loved her walks. And she also was, like, tiptoe into this. But she was...
Her mother made a point to say that she was a little intellectually delayed, that she had the personality and the vocabulary of someone who was much younger, and that I think it was someone else in the family said that she hit a certain age, like maybe 11, and then kind of just stopped.
Yeah, that's the one I hung on to. Let's hope it was a little bit older than that, because she's living with a dude. But you're right. Her sister does say she got up to a certain age and then just stopped. She kind of had like a childlike attitude. Mm-hmm. So much so that they're warning her boyfriend, John Adams, and stuff. Like it was like a thing, like don't take advantage of her.
And I think they trusted him to not ever take advantage of her and to treat her right.
But when we meet him, I had no problems with him. He seemed like a good dude who really cared about her. And I didn't get the sense that he was taking advantage of her at all.
I thought this was cool. We're back at the church and the cops are about ready to talk to everybody. And they say, hey, if you have information, keep it to yourselves so that there's not like overlap where like if you're talking to somebody, they go, well, I heard that too. And it's like, well, you just heard that from that person next to you. Mm-hmm. I thought this was decent police work. What do you think?
Yeah, we see it on their body cam footage too of basically the whole community.
Yeah, we got a lot of footage of this stuff.
The whole community is gathered in this little church, and it's one of those one-room churches where there's the aisle and the pews, but it's not really pews, it's chairs, and then just right off to the left is the kitchen. And it's all one room. So we see everybody piled in there, and the cops are giving their instructions, and everyone's kind of nodding, and you can see like the look of genuine concern, and they're there to find her because she was very involved in that church.
Oh yeah, big time. She loved this church.
She sang in the choir.
She sure did. And she also showed up I think this was covered in the backstory part, but she would show up to church with her own Bible and like a notebook. And the assistant pastor and his wife really loved that little tidbit. That's when they jumped on and said, Chantay, let's hang out.
You stay.
Yeah. Damn it.
They loved her.
They did.
She felt like their adopted daughter because they spent so much time with her singing in the choir and doing things with the church. And we talked to them a lot in this episode.
You couldn't help but smile with her around because she glowed. She glowed.
So the cops learned that she was out at a restaurant, and then she had gotten a ride home with her boyfriend, John Adams, and he went to work while she went on this walk with her friend, Caitlin. And this is when we find out how big these walks are. I mean, she walked with her friend, Caitlin, for a few hours. And then the grandpa who lived with her is like, come on in. And she's like, no, I'm okay. And she like sprints away from her friend and keeps walking on her own.
Yeah.
And that's the last time we see her alive.
Her grandpa called her right before we got to the end of the street. Said, hey, it's getting dark. She's like, it's okay, Papa. I'll be home soon.
So this is when Bird, one of the detectives we talked to, he's the only name I remember. I also remember every single male officer in here was wearing a cowboy hat. They were all wearing cowboy hats.
Texas.
Including in the car, and I can't believe it fits. Like, I gotta take my hat off in a car, and I'm like 5'8", yo.
And you drive a pretty big car.
That's right. I drive a red Bronco, which will come up later, Carcade.
No.
One thing that's really funny is that Blayne is there on the scene walking with one of the detectives. Did you notice that he had 2 belts on? He had 2 belt buckles that were identical. Now, here's my theory. At least one of those was a gun belt.
Oh, sure. A holster.
I've got to assume, but I'm telling you, the buckles matched. I was like, what is this guy doing?
Weird.
Yeah, and nobody else, the other cops in cowboy hats, when they were out on the scene, they only had 1 belt on. So I don't know, does he have like 6 shooters ready to go? Like, is he like really, I don't know.
Huh.
But that's, again, I'm coming up with a lot of almost BYBs, because I can't really bust him. He's got to carry his weapon. And if he doesn't want to go shoulder style, he's going to go gun belt. But anyway, it looked wild. Cops learn about this party house. People would go to the party house, and they came up with a great nickname, the Haunted House. We got opinions on names and nicknames, and I've got an opinion here. They could have done better.
They could have. It does look haunted, but it's just a dilapidated farm.
I mean, it's like also destroyed pretty much. Like the back half of it, there's no walls. And like there's a second story, but it's not like you can walk up there. And even one of the detectives...
It's kind of like the house that you live right next to.
That's true.
Ladies and gentlemen,
yeah.
Kurt pulls power and internet and water from an abandoned house.
Yeah. Okay, all legally. My dad's buddy owns the property, okay? But hey, for the video watchers, I'll show you some vid of it, and I'm telling you, Kate's not kidding. It's totally a horror house. I felt like Dateline did this for me, is they did it real tight when they were setting up that police tape, and it was right side up.
There you go.
Boom. I like that. I said, thanks, Dateline. Thanks for looking out. They check out the scene. There's loose bracelets everywhere, and there's, like, loose hair. Like, they kind of put it together that the body had been thrown over the fence, dragged somewhere, and then beaten to death with the blade of a lawnmower.
Yes.
Sorry, this is when, even at this point in the episode, they still think it's those searchers, and that's why we're still going to talk about them. They literally bring them downtown and even wire up the one guy to a polygraph.
Ridiculous.
How hard did law enforcement press Charlie?
Extremely hard.
Did you participate in killing Chantay?
Chantay, no.
Again, I was going, man, I would not have done this. Like, these poor dudes, these poor two, like, they were just helping, and now they're getting grilled. Like, the guy is straight up like, it's really weird that you knew that. Let's talk.
I thought it was funny how a line of questioning throughout this whole episode is... It has to do with that lawnmower blade. So the cops are accusing everyone of doing a lot of lawn care.
Yeah.
And everyone in the town does their own lawn care. So they're not really weeding anybody out. Ooh, no pun intended.
All right, so now they can finally cross off these two off the list. Finally.
Good Samaritans. Far from suspects, they had been a blessing to the investigation.
And then they go to their new number one suspect, boyfriend John Adams, which traditionally, of course, is the very first suspect.
And they tell him that. And he knows, too. They're like, we often have to look at the boyfriend or the husband. And he was like, I get it. Ask me what you want to ask me. Come on in, search the house, do what you got to do.
Yeah, and again, we had great body cam of this. A lot of killer body cam. What did you think of the cops' vibes with old John when they're walking through the garage and saying, like, oh, this hammer, what's this? Did you use this to pick up nails? Or like...
What is that on the hammer? Is that for pulling out nails or something?
Do you own a lawn care service? Or...
Do you guys have a lawn care service or something?
Like, they comment on how many separate mowers there are in there.
They're just grasping at straws. Anything. Like, again, it seemed like the perfect amount of lawn care equipment that one would have living on a ranch.
Yeah.
And it's all in the back, like it hasn't been touched in a while, so it's clearly not something that was just used or taken out the previous week. But they also start grilling him about his timeline that night. Because, like he had said earlier, he went to work.
Yeah.
But the cops really bump on this because they ask him, what time does your shift start? And he says 9. And they're like, but you went to work at 6?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I often go early to get something to eat, which that bumped me too. That's a long time to go early.
Okay, Kate, I get the 3 hours thing, but I feel like you've never worked in a restaurant before.
I've never worked in a restaurant.
Okay, I have, and I'll tell you, getting there early so you can eat the free food is a big old part of it. Is a huge part of it. Now, 3 hours is too long, but the pre-work free grub is very real.
Sure, I can imagine, but maybe get there at 8?
Yeah, I mean, they were really jumping on it, too.
You're supposed to go to work at 9.
Yeah, but I show up early sometimes.
I don't really much care for any cop talk on body cams. And I'm just like, guys, there's a recording going. Like, I just watched the Gabby Petito thing on Netflix. And there's this one cop who won't shut up about how great showers are to relax.
You can get yourself a shower for like $4 or $5, something like that. A place where you can shower, decompress. It does my wife wonders. So when she gets stressed out, it's like, get in the shower. Just get in the shower.
And like my wife does it, so you should do it too, Gabby. Let me take your husband to a hotel.
Well, that whole Gabby Petito roadside
yeah.
conversation is just tragic to watch. How they got it so wrong when they took all the steps to get it right.
Yeah. And even the one female cop there goes, I'd rather get dinged for going overboard than not doing anything. And I wanted to be like, keep talking, lady, right?
Rather dinged for a decision I made than a decision I didn't make.
Ugh.
They just read it the exact wrong way. And that part where the mom is like, yeah, but then we found out about the 911 call where they said a man was punching a woman.
Yeah.
But then they pull him over and accuse her of punching him?
Because admittedly, she's saying that she attacked him, but she is bawling hysterically. She is in rough shape.
I'm perfectly calm all the time.
What's his nuts is up there trying to make jokes with the cops and being weird as hell.
And when she's passing on her love and saying goodnight and stuff like that, all that is the stuff that I do to my wife too, okay? So I appreciate it coming from just
And they're like, this is the victim here. Let's get him to a domestic assault like safety zone.
Insane.
And here, Gabby, here's the keys. You can just keep driving. Ugh.
And
anyway,
she's a young girl in a van alone off at a campground.
Yeah.
So wrong. Anyway, different show.
Yeah. So they talk to John, and they're going to go do some digging on him while they're looking around at other suspects. And one of them is this guy who was driving around, drove by Chantay and waved, and was described as very creepy. All right. Now, what was he driving? His name was Sosa.
Was he?
Tell me about this, Kate. Or car Kate. Beep, beep.
Was he driving a red Bronco?
A red and white Bronco. He sure was. He sure was. Do you remember this? It wasn't a sexy Bronco, but it was clearly an old vintage one, but it was like kind of too new to be the sweet spot.
So it's like a 2000?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's got to be like 94 and earlier, I feel.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
But this guy was nice, and he was cool with them, and he's like, yeah, I did drive by him. I regret waving, I guess, but...
Sorry for being friendly.
Yeah. And he had overalls on, too. I liked his look.
So he was very open.
Absolutely.
He also shared where he'd been that night.
Okay, so he didn't do it. And now they're looking at John Adams' phone. Now, again, I'm going to slide this over to the textpert. What did they discover about John Adams and his text messages?
Well, he had deleted some.
Ooh.
And he deleted them right before he knew the cops were going to be looking at his phone. But he actually admits that it wasn't to cover up anything that went on with Chantay. It was conversations I think he was having with his weed dealer, and he didn't want to get either of them in trouble. And the cops were like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was like, and they go, and don't try and lie, because we even saw you say my phone is clean. So, like, what's what? Mm-hmm. And thankfully, John, they said that the second time they talked to John, the vibe wasn't as nice on both sides.
This time, the conversation was less friendly on both sides.
And I'd say incorrect, Blayne. John was chill the whole time. John never got upset about anything.
No.
It was the cops that were kind of grilling him.
And you know what I'm talking about, because you even told somebody, hey, my phone's clean.
And I get his mentality here, too, because even the cops go, he was embarrassed about doing drugs. And I get that marijuana is a drug, y'all. But, like, it's not, it's just, like, in this day and age, it's just like, let's not get caught up on this, gentlemen.
But it's still illegal in Texas, isn't it? So he was legit worried they were just going to arrest him for drugs.
Oh, I get his worry, absolutely. I guess him saying drugs makes it like he could have been doing heroin and he would have said the same thing. And I want to be like, no, he was doing... Anyway, listen.
You're right. You're right.
I got plenty of high horses to get on this episode, and I'm going to skip this one. We'll keep moving. So boyfriend's cleared. People who found her's clear. The guy who waved and said, "What's up?" Cleared. So now they're like, uh-oh. And, but they keep talking to John because, again, John's a good guy. He has 4 different interviews, and he has a suggestion that, hey, why don't you guys go talk to this Colin Smith guy? He's kind of had an eye for my lady. He's a little shady. He likes to drink and drive. Go talk to Colin. Mm-hmm. So how's this go?
Is this the guy that she was like texting with?
John Adams told investigators Colin was a troublemaker.
Because the thing that the friend says that everyone just kind of glazed over.
What?
That he asked her to meet him in that barn, but they never went.
Yeah, that's this guy. And I think that was the night of the murder, was it not?
It was, and they never went. And the friend says this, and nobody follows up on that.
That is weird, considering other stuff we talk about multiple times.
Yeah.
Okay, so the story on Colin is he's kind of like a roustabout, and they go talk to him, and he's like, nope, me and Chantay have never partied, okay? I don't know her. We've never been sexually active with each other.
Yeah.
We texted.
Never even kissed. We're friendly, but we don't hang out. It's not a thing.
And he said that he changed his number because she would call from sunup to sundown.
I had to change my number because she would call it from like 6:30 in the morning to like midnight at night. Just call, hang up, call, hang up, call, hang up.
Now, that's brutal. I mean, changing your number is a huge friggin' step. That is a huge step.
It is.
I just she really must have been calling a lot. They ask him to come down, and as they're strapping him up to the poly, he goes, all right, look, y'all, we did kind of knock boots a little. We were with each other physically. And he does a classic dude thing that we hate so much, but it was a while ago. I mean, I'm talking 2 or 3 weeks. She's been dating John for 3 years and living with the guy, by the way.
I left her alone. And
when's the last time you've been with her?
A couple weeks ago.
So he talks to them, and this is another classic thing that we love or hate. They get to say whatever they want about the results, right? And so they're like, well, hey, you know what? Colin, looks like you were deceptive, so we got to figure this out. And he says, like, don't make me or I'll call my lawyer. And should they have shut up and said, okay, then? Because do you remember what they did say? They said, I don't give a about your lawyer. Do you remember that?
Hey, I don't give a one way or another if you're gonna hire them. Do not sit there and try to threaten me.
I don't think he said it the way you're supposed to say it. He said, okay, I could call him, but he should have said, like, I'm not gonna do anything further without my lawyer, or I'm calling my lawyer. But the hypothetical, well, I could call.
Because he thought that they were done. Yeah, I was surprised when the cop, and then this guy did what I would probably do, as I've talked about with the cop, is I'd probably go, yes, sir. Because he's like, I'm sorry, I thought you were done, sir. I'm sorry, I thought you were done. So he gets strapped up again.
He did say, I thought you were done, and the cop was like yelling at him.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay. I thought you said we were done.
So they talk to him, and it's deceptive. We don't know the details of that. It's just that this guy who did the test, who Kate trusts, he's been doing it a long time. Okay? This polygrapher's been doing it a long time.
Okay. I've done a lot of these tests, and I'm looking at this.
Sure. I've been doing this test a long time, and I can honestly say that I've never seen someone be so deceptive.
I was waiting. I thought maybe we were going to get a list item or something. You got your name right, but it didn't happen. And actually, they delay Colin because his alibi is, I was at my brother's house. I fell asleep on his couch watching a basketball game. So they delay him at the station so he can't get out and call his bro and say quick, lie about this. Mm-hmm. But they go talk to the brother, and he confirms the alibi. So yet again, we've got an airtight alibi from this number one suspect. Colin Smith didn't do it. He was crashed on the couch.
But earlier, when they were talking to Chantay's friend, who she went on the walk with, she told the cops that Colin and Chantay had been texting and had agreed to meet up that night at this barn. I guess it's like their hookup spot.
The shed in the back of his house, and he said, don't tell anybody.
Right.
Chantay also told her friend Colin wanted to meet up the night she disappeared.
Saying, hey, meet me out by the barn tonight, but don't tell anybody.
And then no one follows up with that. They didn't even ask him in their interrogation. If they did, we didn't see it, of, hey,
yeah,
I thought you guys weren't really that close and you hadn't hooked up in a couple weeks, but then why are you meeting on the night of her murder?
Yeah.
But then they never did, and I guess it's because he fell asleep. And maybe she was walking around waiting and was going to go to that barn and never made it, and he fell asleep anyway, so it just didn't happen.
Yeah. Boy, that was weird. They really did blow over it. Okay, so they're all clean as well. And I'll give the cops a little credit here that they admitted that Jackie and Charlie from the beginning were a blessing. and that they would not have found her without them. I liked this, that they owned it.
Yes.
We were very lucky, very blessed.
Although I think someone would have found her because
Right.
people went to that haunted house all the time.
Yeah, I bring it up because he said, like, animals would have gotten to her first, and he said coyotes. I wish
That's true.
I could call coyotes.
He did say coyotes.
There's all kinds of predatory animals out here. Coyotes.
I don't think I could get away with that. Coyotes.
Coyotes.
Okay. All right, Detective Bird. I'm into you, kind of. What I'm not into is your friggin' wife, the assistant DA.
Investigator Bird's wife could see the case was weighing heavily on her husband.
How is that legal?
It shouldn't be.
It should not be legal. We're not kidding. The lead detective was married to the DA, okay? And,
I also want to say that I don't think Colin changed his phone number because of Chantay.
Why not? Why'd he do it?
Because he's clearly texting with her again after he changed it.
Kate, good call. They should have been on that.
If he changed it, it was because he's doing some other shady thing.
I mean, you're 1,000% correct. I wonder if they call him on that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the biggest lie so far that I'd be swearing at Colin about. Is like, well, if you change your number, why were you contacting her today?
Right.
That's a boom right there. So, I mean, Colin looks shady, but it's not him.
No.
They end up getting DNA from, like, all the dudes in town. Dozens of dudes, including Grandpa.
That was...
Like, they're getting everybody
that was
in there.
rough, that they had to get it from Grandpa, who cared about her and wanted to find her. It's just that he had a past.
He did?
Yeah, didn't he have, like, prior convictions from his youth of battery and, like, kidnapping or something?
Oh, no. I don't remember that. But again, look, I've been wrong before and wrong recently. So I could have very well missed that. But he was the one that said to her, come inside, it's getting dark out. I don't remember that bad past thing, but that could be. But
I could be misremembering and confusing it with one of the dozens of People magazine investigates that I've been watching.
Kate's blowing through these things. Tell them how many episodes you watched in the last week, Kate. Tell them.
At least 20.
Boom. I love it. I friggin' love it. Okay, so they're back to square one. They don't know what's going on. They plug all the DNA. It doesn't match anybody in the system. CODIS, no hits, right? But they do have the DNA of the killer. Now, this is when the show does... Let's talk about Assistant DA Bird, okay?
You're looking for some theory of the case.
Because this is when Blayne is like, did you think it was a serial killer? Did you think it was this? And every word that came out of Assistant DA Bird's mouth was dumb and wrong. Am I right?
Well, it certainly wasn't a cult.
And that's what she says. And we were just doing this last week, and that was also BS. But I'm not sure I've ever seen a thinner argument for a cult. Do you remember what her 2 points of contention were?
No. Tell me.
It was Friday the 13th.
Alicia Bird was still thinking about that strange symbol on Chantay's chest. What could it mean?
The disappearance on Friday the 13th.
And that it looked like a symbol on her chest.
Right.
That the cops say could have been a shoe print, maybe. Duh.
Was it a shoe print?
But no, those were the only two things, Kate. And that's why, I guess, I'll wait to roast her officially when we get to how they do solve it. Because she has strong opinions about that. But this was so thin. It's Friday the 13th, and there's a mark on her chest. Maybe it's cult activity.
Is there something more sinister than just somebody got murdered? Is this some type of cult activity?
Cult activity is not more evil than what this motherfucker did. Okay? If someone died, I'm going to put them on equal footing.
Yes.
But what makes that so much more evil than what this thing is out of nowhere? Anyway. Okay. Months pass. People are getting worried. Pastor at the church is hounding the cops, so much so that they suspect him a little. And this could be it, because they're like, sometimes, hide in plain sight and whatnot, and blah, blah, blah. What did you think about the pastor? Were you suspicious?
No.
Really?
No, not at all. I knew it was going to be someone around her age.
Why?
Because...
You're smart.
Once we start learning about the texting and the relationships with people in town, I just start thinking, well, who else does she know?
Yeah. Yeah, when they were talking about how John would be jealous sometimes, it's because she would like to smile at guys and they'd smile back and stuff.
She's a big flirt, and that can get people in trouble. And if she's out walking and someone rolls by and she smiles at them...
Who knows?
Chantay liked to wave at boys, and boys would wave back, and it made her feel good. That made him a little jealous.
And sure, someone who's older could also be lured in by that, but for some reason... Maybe it was the way they set it up in the beginning where they implied that it was maybe someone that was in front of them the whole time within the community. It just felt like it was going to be a pier.
Yeah. And one thing we didn't mention is they had security cams at the memorial, like hidden around, like 4 different angles, and even a camera at the gravesite. What'd you think about the hidden camera at the gravesite? Good move?
I felt like it was a good move, although I've never seen that before. But if someone is paying their respects and gets overly emotional or acts weird, it's a good place to catch it.
I've seen this on an FF, and this was like back in the 80s or 90s, and the audio, it was the guy that they thought killed the person, and it ended up being true. And he did visit the gravesite, but the audio, like the mic got bumped. And so there was no audio, so they didn't know what the hell he was saying. Oh, brutal. But this one was clearly a murder in 2017, because this camera was pretty close.
Yes.
Right? It's in color and everything. Okay, so on the 1 year, still nothing. And you know the family is sitting there going, why aren't the cops doing anything? Like, they're losing faith, not knowing that, of course, the cops are doing their thing on the lowdown. But on the 1 year, this was very cute and endearing, is on the 1 year, the family organized a walk where they all did the walk that Chantay would do from the church to home. And the mom's like, oh, I was sweating my ass off. She was like, I don't know how she did it.
Everybody was out of breath. We didn't know how she did it. Yeah.
Well, that was her thing.
Yeah, it was her thing.
And she did it like every day.
Yeah, for fun. Oh, crazy. Okay, so now it's time. Oh, we also talked to her stepdad, who had a proper mullet. I mean, and that it wasn't like your ironic mullets you'll see today on athletes. This guy's had the perm in the back for a long time.
It took me a minute to realize that he was her stepdad and not like another 23-year-old kid.
He looks the same age as her boyfriend when we talk to him.
Yeah.
Because he's on the Dateline as well.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And then I see video and pictures of him in different settings, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, he's a little bit older. But, man, he looked young.
Yeah. Killer perm mullet in the back. So now the cops are at the end of the rope. They've got nothing going. So old Bird decides to throw a Hail Mary out there. They had a detective on the case who does not work there. They were quick to mention that, Kate. Do you think there's a story there?
There's gotta be. Small town like that, he got on somebody's nerves.
Yeah? Somebody. Because he's like a former detective who's no longer with us. Said that he saw this on a TV show.
Wait, does that mean he's dead?
No, he said it in a way that he's no longer on the team and stuff. Okay. But I'm going to play it again, maybe.
One of our investigators who doesn't work for us anymore.
I mean, that would make a lot of sense why they don't talk about him. But maybe the guy was like, so don't ask me to get him on here, okay? Because we hate that guy now. We're not going to give you his contact info, okay? He's not with the force. But he did have a great idea, and he saw it on a TV show, phenotyping. Now, what show do you think he saw that on, Kate? What do you think?
Forensic Files.
I mean, it's a pretty good chance.
Yeah.
Because I've seen this phenotyping before. It's because like the way that they look at it, they've got the DNA of the killer. They've got the guy, they just don't know the guy's name. And so phenotyping is you send it into a lab, and they reverse engineer what this person might look like based on the DNA. And now when Detective Bird throws this out, what's everyone's reaction?
They are like, that's going to be a waste of money. That there's no way that's going to work. Like, they've seen this before, and it's just, how could it ever look exactly like the person? They were very skeptical.
And then I had to convince them to give me some more money.
That couldn't have been easy.
That's not easy.
The price tag? $3,600.
They were, and the assistant DA loved to talk about how, like, it sounded fake, it sounded sci-fi, it sounded like it was from the movies.
It felt very television-esque, you know? It felt like something that you see on TV. It very much felt like a science fiction idea.
And I'm going to say this. The only reason why they didn't want to do it was because the price tag was $3,600, which they presented like it was $1 billion. I'm not saying I've got $3,600, because I do not. But I thought they were going to say 30 grand or something. Like $3,600 sounds doable for a state to come up with.
Yes.
And now, I ask Assistant DA Bird, how is it that you can go, no, I don't want to do phenotyping. That's like TV fakery. That's like sci-fi. When you're the dum-dum coming at us with, well, it's Friday the 13th. I mean, that's like a movie and stuff. And like, people like to kill on that date. It could be a cult. Oh my God. Right? Is that not in direct contrast to her bullshit about the cult? Like, that's what's TV like. That's what's sci-fi, lady.
Clownery.
Ugh. Woo! That was my most heated moan. Was that your most heated moan for you too, Kate, or no?
No.
No. Did we already talk about it?
Nope.
Ooh! Okay, let's keep cooking. Now, luckily, Bird convinces them to spend $3,600. Everybody's suspicious. The other cop, the guy who belt buckle Bob, is like, I didn't think it was going to do anything. And then Bird gets an email, and it said, image attached. And he was like, ooh, okay. I kind of liked his excitement there of like, oh, let's see if it is.
I pulled it up, and it said the image was included. Oh, goodness.
And they show us the picture. Tell us about this, Kate. Who's it look like?
This picture, it's a blonde kid with blue eyes. It's the most generic white boy you've ever seen in your life. And everyone in the town commented on how generic that was, and that it just looks like any white kid in Texas, and that they couldn't think of anyone who looked like that. So this is what made my blood boil, actually.
Okay, I can't wait.
Every single person that talked about this picture said, that didn't look like anybody to us. We've never seen anybody like that. It's too generic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then Chantay's half-brother sees this picture after a week. He goes, I know who that is. You guys all know who that is. He goes to the church.
Yeah, Ryan Riggs. There's your name. Now, do you remember why?
And they put up a picture of Ryan Riggs, and it is that exact guy.
Okay, here's where they went wrong, Kate. Here's the problem and why it didn't look like anybody. One, the half-brother knew him because this little bullied him back in the day. What sweet, sweet relief this must have been for the half-bro to be like, I know this prick. He poured OJ on me one time. Boom, cops, go to him.
Ryan had bullied Cutter in school and had poured a whole glass of sweet tea over his head.
Here's why I think nobody recognized him. They gave him like the hip little kid haircut where it's shaved up too high on one side, and he was clean shaven. What do every single male in this episode have but like splotchy beard and crooked hat? Like, put that on that guy's face and it would have jumped out at him.
Maybe, but...
Maybe.
He goes to the church where they all go. He's like the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy of that age, and no one recognized him?
Yeah. You know the haircut I'm talking about, right? That haircut's not around those parts, I feel.
I do, but in that photo, in that side-by-side, hair aside, they look the same. It's the same guy.
Yeah, and
for everyone to be like, well, I don't know who that is, and then for the stepbrother to be like, yeah, you do.
You do know. He's been on the searches for her. He shook your hand, stepdad.
He came to the funeral.
He rode on your ATV, John Adams, ex-boyfriend. So you all know this guy.
He was so involved with this search.
Yeah.
He was at the service, running around with John trying to look for her, calling out her name.
Yep. And so they go back to their free resources because that phenotype was enough. They go to Facebook, Ryan Riggs, click, click, click. That's when they see the pics and they're like, oh my God, this has got to be our dude.
Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, it was almost like somebody turned the lights on and you were like, there he is.
And so they go to the house where Ryan Riggs lives. He's not there. Mom is like, we haven't seen him for a few days. So now the chase is on. It looks like we got our guy and he's on the run.
Investigators now had a new and urgent priority. Find Ryan Riggs.
Oh, they look into Ryan Riggs' background. He did not have like a criminal history, except he was involved in an illegal dumping case. I thought this was kind of funny. And like even Blayne says that's no bigs, but where he dumped it is kind of bigs. And it was like a half mile from the haunted house, right?
He was very familiar with the haunted house property and
partied there.
That whole area.
Yeah. We found that he was a suspect in an illegal dumping case.
But again, everybody was. But he had some intimate knowledge with it.
Yeah. And so everybody's on the lookout for this Ryan Riggs. November 15th, 2017. Just your average Wednesday night service at Chantay's church. Our assistant pastor and his wife come in, the one that we've been talking to. And this guy wanted to be on your list so bad, Kate. He wanted to be, but it didn't happen, right? Little Mr. Teary guy over here. I was waiting for it.
He kept crying and stopping, but he never said sorry.
Yeah. Well, and he cried before he talked, too. And even Blayne is like, all I had to say was the service, and you start bawling. Like, is this hard for you? And the wife...
And his wife grabs his hand.
Yeah. And the wife's like, I'll start this story.
Okay, I'll start.
Would you like to tell this story, Kate? I mean, maybe, is this where... I mean, this was another point where I was like, steam engine red, like coming out of my ears.
Yeah. The assistant pastor and his wife, they arrive at the church service. Now, they don't know that Ryan is the number one suspect at this point.
They don't. You're right.
But they do know they haven't seen him in a while. He's been out of town.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They come to this church service, And who is standing there next to the pastor but Ryan himself? And they're
up there at the pulpit.
Up there at the pulpit at the front of the church. And they're like, what's going on? And the pastor's like, Ryan has something he wants to tell you. And they're like, okay. And the pastor's wife is like, it's something he needs to get off his chest. And he goes, I'm a bad person. I did a bad thing. And immediately the assistant pastor is like, does this have to do with Chantay? And the pastor's wife is like, yes, it does. And this prick goes on to tell them what he did.
He says he's a murderer. Now, I feel like you're giving him a little bit too much credit on how he admitted it, because the first thing he goes on about is his salvation. That's how he started the talk, was about how he needed to be saved, and this is his moment of salvation. Mm-hmm. So I just want to present that as like, it wasn't even a straight up, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for what I did. Because later we're going to find out he does another thing that grinds the gears. It was the demon in me.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you guys. It was that rascal demon. But yeah, he straight up gets up there and says, I'm a murderer. And now, assistant pastor's bawling his eyes out. And what's the pastor do but say, hey, assistant pastor, get up here and stand next to him.
He does it. He's not happy about it, but eventually he takes his hand and says that he forgives him. And
he hugged him, dude.
Why my blood is boiling at this point is because he obviously came to the church hours earlier and told the pastor and his wife and asked for this to happen at this service. And the pastor didn't call the cops.
No, he waits to call the cops until after the service. So I don't know if he thought this would bring numbers in, if he like advertised it, like we got a special guest tonight, but I don't understand his thinking here.
No.
So they call the cops, the sheriff comes out, and they drive Riggs to jail just in case he gets second thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we get the interrogation, and he spills the beans. What happened? He was out cruising around and saw her walking and just asked her if she wanted to ride.
Mm-hmm.
She hops in, and they're like listening to music, and this I loved. In his dumb story, he's saying it really gave me a painting of Chantay's personality that I loved, because he's like, in every song that would come on, she'd go, oh, this is my song. I loved that. I was like, oh, Chantay. So they are doing that.
That's very K-Money coded.
I'll take that. I'll agree with that.
I feel like you're stoked a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're bumping tunes, it's like, oh yeah, turn this one up. Next one comes on. Oh, hell yeah, turn this one up.
Yep, that's true. But somewhere along the lines there, he doesn't even like try to talk to or try to make a move. He just straight up puts his arm around her and strangles her until she passes out, takes off her clothes, and rapes her. There's no
point. There's no reason.
All murder is senseless, but this one, I was like, she didn't even like deny you, dude. I don't like, what made this snap happen?
Doesn't he say that he's always had a darkness in him?
Yeah, and that he used to dunk the family chihuahua in a 5-gallon bucket, and he wanted to drown the dog, but he never did it because he'd say, what are you doing? Chihuahua! I mean, this all might be true, but this is where it comes into, this is the demon talking, and I just want to be like, just say you did this stuff, dude. I've just got a real problem when confessions are like this.
It's so senseless and with no motive whatsoever.
Yeah, and he says the only reason why he killed her with a lawnmower blade that was in the back of his car was because he knew she couldn't live to tell on him. And so then he does, already choking her to death is cruel. Drags her by her hair, tosses her over the fence, and then beats her to death with the lawnmower blade. Like, this is brutal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Overkill. It's overkill.
Yeah, and even DA Bird, or the DA lady that I don't like, was like, it was so brutal that I thought this wasn't his first time. I was like, I know you think that, like, everybody has, like, people are too nice, lady, but, like, people do this stuff on the first go.
Yeah, it often happens in these small towns where things like this just don't happen.
Mm.
Because it's actually exactly where they happen.
Yeah. It's a great point. Now, it sounds like it's list time, but we got to talk about the verdict. Well, not verdict, because he takes a deal, right? This is a capital murder because he killed her and also, like, beat her up a whole lot. So now this has the death penalty coming, but they make the deal, life in prison.
He wanted death.
No death penalty.
He asked for death.
Yeah. And this is where I feel very bad for Chantay's mom, because she goes, this is better, this way he suffers. And she said a number of things that are not true at all, and it hurts me to say it. Number one, even the DA was saying, this guarantees that he'll never see the light of day again. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, if this was in California, we'd know that wouldn't be true. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. It's like, you don't know what legislation's going to come around in 20 years. He's really young. He could get paroled in his 50s.
Yeah.
Don't you agree? I mean, that's only 30 years later.
I mean, the only thing is, it is Texas. And I'm surprised that they even let him, then that would get him off death row. That's surprising to me. But you're right. We don't know what could happen.
And then the poor mom says he'll never be able to get married or have kids. And I said, wrong on both accounts.
You can do both of those in prison.
You could do both those. I mean, and guess what? He probably will get married. Don't you think?
He probably will.
Because you can definitely do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that I felt bad about. Well, let's hope he doesn't. He's rotting away in jail. And the mom didn't like the confession either. She's like, this was Chantay's favorite place. Like, the church was a huge deal to her. And now, instead of it being the house of worship that her daughter loved, it's where the killer got his salvation.
Yeah.
I'm not into this.
No.
I'm not into that.
She's not into it, and neither are we.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, now it's time to go to those lists, I think. I say it with a little hesitation because I feel like I'm forgetting something, Kate. But hit me with your list.
Kate's unnamed list. It's a small town. The kind of town where things like this just don't happen. Although I did look it up, and surprisingly, it has a population of 18,000.
Okay. I mean, there were points, like the fact that the cop didn't know about the haunted house. There were some things said where I was like, this is a small town, but this doesn't feel small townish.
I've never seen that house before. I don't know that I'd ever been on that county road in my career.
But I think that's just because Texas is big and everything's sprawling or whatever. Like, it's all spread out.
I was also looking at my indication of how small is the town is based on how many traffic lights there are. And this had several. And they also had a coffee shop with a decent menu. That's also a way I can tell what are we working with here.
Wait, was this in some B-roll I missed?
No. I did a deep dive on Google.
Oh, Kate, getting her hands dirty. Okay.
Yeah, and the coffee shop, it looked cool.
Legit.
The menu looked good. There was some good food items in addition to coffee, and I thought, okay, this might not be that small of a town, but I think for this case it is, especially when we're dealing with such a tight-knit community.
Well, and because I think what seals it, and if like we had to take this to court to say whether or not this is or is not a Kate's unnamed list item, the fact that the assistant DA is married to the lead detective and it was not a problem.
Yes.
I mean, that's done and done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, you got anything else?
Well, I don't think the red Bronco counts because it was not evidence or actually connected to it.
Okay. I guess I jumped the gun. I was excited to get a red Bronco in the mix. Maybe poster-wise.
Well, that's your car.
Yeah, I know. But you're not giving it to me, and I gotta stick to the rules. Car Kate says no, so it doesn't count.
No, I don't think it counts.
Damn it!
And that's probably it.
Okay.
These kids are a little too old to be considered them kids.
I mean, they're 25 and 26.
But they seem younger.
So, absolutely. On to Kurt's Kick-Ass List.
Kick-Ass List.
I got some good ones, and the first one is, cop is talking about the relationship between John Adams and Chantay, and he's like, they weren't perfect. They weren't Ozzie and Harriet. And I say, ding, 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 TV show mention.
There you go.
It was strained. They weren't the Ozzie and Harriet. They weren't perfect.
Now, one, I love how old that friggin' show is, and it's still getting reffed. I mean, this detective's probably in his 60s or something, but I loved the shout out, and no need to explain it. I know of it as being a show about, like, the perfect family life from like the 50s. Mm-hmm. Is that like your general knowledge of Ozzie and Harriet?
Yeah.
So I did a little Googling on it. Ozzie and Harriet were a real married couple in real life, and the kids who played their kids were their real kids. Isn't that insane? And they both stayed married until their deaths. Now look, that could have been like who knows what kind of marriage, but by all accounts, Ozzie and Harriet were the real deal. Isn't that kind of wild?
True love.
But don't you think that's nuts? They started a sitcom about it, and it wasn't like they hated each other or it was fake or anything.
Well, I Love Lucy did that too.
Yeah, but we know their history. I guess, whatever. Ozzie and Harriet is a show, and it was the longest running sitcom, live action sitcom of all time. Do you know what dethroned it, Kate, in 2021?
Oh,
live action.
Sitcom, live action. Big Bang Theory?
Always Sunny.
Oh, sure.
Because
I was thinking studio audience sitcom.
Fair. And like, the Wikipedia had why it counted, but I mean, that it's not like Always Sunny was on one of the big three, right? It's on cable, but I'm giving it to him because that show's still running. So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting, and that's definitely on Kurt's kick-ass list. All this talk about, well, one, the guy spotting phenotyping because of a TV show he watched. That's on my list, okay? And also on my list was them trying, the cheapskates wanting to talk them out of phenotyping by going, this isn't a TV show. This is what happens on TV shows. This is a sci-fi thing. This is fake.
It felt very television-esque.
That's it for my list, Kate.
Okay, not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, a lot of the TV stuff. Oh, I mean, we got to include, this is in there with the TV show stuff, but Friday the 13th is a thing because of the movies. I mean, they called it Friday the 13th, I assume, because it was already a spooky thing. But you can't deny that it's very much because of the franchise Friday the 13th that it's stuck.
I would agree with that. Yes.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm Kurt Money.
I'm Kateline.
I'm Lester Holt. For all of us, I'm Lester Holt. Good night.
Chihuahua.